He tried to command the dogs, but the dogs are obviously vicious and not trained and do not respond to him orally.
So he didn't stand there doing nothing. He was yelling, but doing nothing physically.
This is the plaintiff, Brandon Mack. He says the defendant's unleashed dog charged at him and his dog, Scooby, and his poor dog was torn to shreds. He's been horribly traumatized. Scooby was terribly injured, and he's here in the name of justice, suing for the $10,000 he's owed. These are the defendants, LaShawn and Anthony. Anthony says the plaintiff's dog was not on a leash, and out of nowhere, he charged at him and his mom's dog, Samantha. They have no idea why this guy thinks he's owed $10,000 when the attack was all his fault, and they think the judge will agree. They're accused of losing control.
All parties, please raise your right hands. The People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Milian is now presiding. Good morning, Your Honor. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right. Mr. Mack, you were walking your dog and some rather unpleasant things developed. Tell me what happened.
Good morning, Your Honor. Yes. To give a summary of what occurred the date of the event, I was walking my dog in my neighborhood as usual. I was in the Bronx on West 174th Street and University Avenue. I suffer from mild asthma. I always keep an albuterol pump on me. About 10 minutes into our walk, I started having some shortness of breath. I was on the corner of University Avenue and West 174th Street. I began utilizing my inhaler. My dog is a registered service animal. He is trained to respond to me when I am exhibiting trauma or distress of any kind because I have anxiety. And so, being that I was having lack of breath, he seemed a little bit anxious to use the bathroom and things like that on the walk. So I took the leash off of him momentarily to allow him to use the tree on the bathroom in front of me. As I was using the inhaler and he was using the bathroom directly in front of me, I witnessed co-defendant Anthony walking two pit bulls, a similar size to my dog, although slightly larger. One of the pit bulls was leashed, the female of the two. The other was a male pit bull, and the male pit bull was not on a leash. I'm not sure if co-defendant Anthony was in the process of putting the leash on the dog, which is what I believe I witnessed, because he was holding the dog by the collar around its neck. Within a few seconds of me just witnessing this after I was using my inhaler, the dogs had kind of made contact with each other, and they started charging at one another. When his dogs charged at my dog, it grabbed my dog by the neck.
Did you say the dogs were charging at each other, or did you say his dogs were charging at your dog?
His dog charged at...
Because you said at each other, so the dogs are being dogs, I guess, right?
No, I meant his two dogs.
Okay.
Because he had two dogs and I have one. They charged at us, and the one dog that was that was on the leash also had gotten out of his control in the startled commotion.
What do you mean by the phrase "was out of his control"? That's your conclusion. Tell me factually what you saw.
The leash came off of his hand.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, he had released it, I believe, accidentally, but now both of the dogs are biting my dog at different places, at the neck, back of the head, the ears, pulling him at different ends, and my dog is not defending himself. So the only option I had to stop the commotion, because co-defendant Anthony, if I'm referring correctly, yes, co-defendant Anthony just stood there, and I had no choice but to aggressively hit both of the defendant's dogs in order to get them to stop.
What do you mean he just stood there? Literally just watched it, enjoying it? What do you mean?
Enjoying it? Well, that would be disturbing. The testimony continues.
Did you ever tell the plaintiff that your dogs are biting other dogs all the time? That's why you have the supplies.
No. I told him that my dog was attacked before, last summer. Got loose from its owner. The owner fell, hit her head, and attacked my dog.
Plaintiff says the defendant is unwilling to stop his dog from attacking. But the defendant claims the plaintiff's dog was unleashed, and that's against the law. Let's listen.
I don't believe he took enjoyment in it. However, he stood there perhaps in shock. He stood there watching.
So he didn't do
nothing.
anything to separate the dogs?
He tried to command the dogs, but the dogs are obviously vicious and not trained and do not respond to him orally.
So he didn't stand there doing nothing.
physically.
He was yelling but doing nothing physically. Okay, go ahead.
Nothing physically.
Okay, go ahead.
In the process of me hitting the dogs to get them to remove their jaws from my dog, the dogs did attempt to bite me, and they scratched me in various places and bit me in several locations. The wounds just weren't puncture deep like on my dog.
Do you have any photographs of the injuries to you? Because I noticed you're not suing for injuries to you.
Because I submitted evidence. I submitted photos of all of my and the dog's injuries. The reason I'm suing for emotional distress for myself and only the veterinary bills for the dog is because I took the dog to the emergency room and to my primary veterinarian. When I followed up with my primary care physician, I wasn't injured to the point that it was more or less deemed superficial. So I wasn't injured to the point that they had to, it was like medical attention was required.
At some point, you're successful able to separate the dogs. How?
I hit them a lot of times. Unfortunately, that was all I could do because the owner of the dogs couldn't get them off.
All right, so what happens? You separate the dogs, and then what happens?
Okay, so I took the dogs off my puppy, and co-defendant Anthony led me to his building, where he asked me to wait downstairs for him for about 10 minutes or so, and came back downstairs with his mother, co-defendant LaShawn.
Okay.
And co-defendant LaShawn offered me water and like different dog first aid tools. She had like antiseptic or like antibiotics, like dog neosporin, things of that nature to clean up the wounds and things like that. As she had mentioned that, you know, she's familiar with this concept because this has happened to her before. She's told me before that her dog...
Is that your conclusion or is that something she said?
That's something she's told me.
What exactly did she say to you?
That her dogs have attacked another dog before. This is why she had the supplies on hand.
She said, I have these supplies because my dogs are always attacking other dogs. I don't find that people usually admit that, but you're saying that's what she said.
Yes, she said that to me, that this has happened to her before.
Okay, go on.
And so as she's cleaning up my dog, we had discussed what protocol I would be taking with her in order for things to proceed forward. Co-defendant LaShawn and Anthony and I made an agreement. They gave me $200 in cash, which I believe I documented through my evidence. And we discussed that I was going to take my dog to the vet and they would pay for the vet bills. This is discussed in text as well.
Okay, and then what happened when you presented the text bills to them?
Co-defendant LaShawn had promised that her son would pay me $200 weekly until my vet bills were paid off. And that first payment would have been a week after the conversation we had, which would have been Thursday, May the 6th.
Did he make the payment?
No. Aside from the initial $200 that happened the day of the attack, I didn't receive any more money from either defendant.
You were walking the dogs, Mr. Anthony. Tell me what happened.
All right, so I was walking my two dogs.
What kind of dogs are they?
Blue Nose Pit, mixed with Siberian Husky.
And you had one on a leash and the other one wasn't. Why was the other one not on a leash?
Nah, both of my dogs was on the leash.
Okay, and?
His dog was off the leash, came charging towards us, grabbed Samantha's face. So then, after that, my dog started defending himself. Then, he was nowhere to be found for like a minute. I'm screaming like, where's the owner? Nobody to be found. Then he come running down the block. Then he helped me break up the dog fight.
What kind of dog do you have, Mr. Mack?
I own a Pit Bull German Shepherd mix.
Oh, yours is a Pit Bull, too. Look at that. He says you weren't right there next to him. How far were you from your dog when your dog was off leash?
About a couple of feet. A couple of steps, at most 4 feet.
So Mr. Anthony's lying when he says that you were nowhere to be found when the dog fight happened.
About as long as a leash. Yes, that is incorrect.
It was like up the block. Like, it's like around the little corner.
Ms. LaShawn, why did you give him $200 and feel so bad when this happened?
Because I'm an animal lover, and I felt real bad that the dog was wounded.
Okay. Did you ever tell the plaintiff that your dogs are biting other dogs all the time? That's why you have the supplies?
No. I told him that my dog was attacked before, last summer. Got loose from its owner. The owner fell and hit her head and attacked my dog.
He says your dog ran at his dogs, and that's how things happened. You know, you have your word against his. I have you kind of, you know, honestly, you're kind of trying to make your case better in many respects.
Welcome back to the People's Court. I'm Harvey Levin. The plaintiff says the defendant's dog mauled his poor pooch, and the dog is still traumatized. But the defendant says the dog fight was the plaintiff's fault, and he's the one who's owed money today. Let's go back into the courtroom.
When you come into court and you're the plaintiff, you have the burden of proving liability. It is your word against his on whether or not his dogs were leashed. You admit your dog wasn't. You just keep saying it doesn't matter because my dog is so well trained, but it does matter. And he does not admit to his dogs being off leash. He says your dog ran at his dogs, and that's how things happened. You know, you have your word against his. I have you kind of, you know, honestly, you're kind of trying to make your case better in many respects, saying that she said this happens all the time, calling those dogs vicious when you have no idea, telling me at first that the two dogs were running to each other and then you correct yourself, then, you know, telling me you had to run to where the fight was, and then telling me 2 steps. Like you just, you know, you're trying to win, and I understand that because that's an expensive vet bill. It's a bill of $1,000, and they've only helped you with 200 of it. Of course, you're suing for 10 grand. You know, instead of the 800. When you come to court, you have the burden of proving by a preponderance of the evidence that your version carries the day. And I've got your word against his. And I'm sorry, I just don't think you've carried your burden. And my verdict in this case is for the defendants.
So the plaintiff fails to convince the judge he should prevail in this $10,000 lawsuit. Mr. Mack, really, are you shocked right now or not? What are you thinking?
I've never experienced something like this, and unfortunately, I should have had more time to prepare and perhaps even deal with an attorney for this case. I unfortunately am very traumatized by the event, and it's very unfortunate that my dog is a year old and a puppy, and we were attacked, and the defendant won't be able to provide any reparations for me, and I just think that that's unjust.
What about the condition of your dog now? How is your puppy?
He's since healed since the event.
All right. Mr. Anthony, let me ask you how you feel about the outcome. I would imagine you feel pretty good.
Yeah, I feel pretty good.
I feel sorry about the dog.
But I feel sorry about the dog, though, because I love all animals.
All right. Harvey, what do you think about this? Interesting case.
So, Doug, the leash law is king in cases like this. If somebody doesn't have their dog on a leash in public and there is a dog fight that erupts, the person who has the dog without the leash is almost always responsible, because if you have a leash, you can prevent a fight by pulling your dog away.
I'm wondering if the judges ever made a decision and found out afterwards that it was wrong. What can they do about that, if anything?
Yes, judges make mistakes. Sometimes they get it wrong, and there are remedies that lawyers can pursue or litigants can pursue in front of a judge when that happens.
What about when you yourself realized that maybe that wasn't right?
Well, you might be able to rectify it and call the parties back in and straighten it out. Of course.
Has that ever happened to you? That's happened to me, where I felt like I sentenced somebody for too many years. I think I sentenced him to 20 years. I had him brought back. I had corrections bring him back from state prison. And I sentenced him to 12, and then he started screaming F you at me because he thought 12 was a lot, too.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Right, it was fine, though, because it was the right sentence. That's one of the things I've always loved about the job, is that you can always do the right thing.
Right.
And other people may not agree it's the right thing, but you can do the right thing. You can kind of call it back and you can change you got do-overs. You really kind of do have do-overs. My very first time that People's Court aired, the appellate court in Dade County, the 3rd District Court of Appeals, wrote a mock reversal of my first case that ever aired, and said because they knew I couldn't get appealed. So
I think you have that opinion.
I think I have that somewhere, where they said that the lower court's ruling being so juvenile as to not merit any further discussion is summarily reversed.
Right.
And then they sent it to me on the official letterhead, the official letterhead of it as a joke. It was kind of funny.
That was great.
It's kind of nice to have a job where if you think you did it wrong, you can fix it. Hopefully every job should be that way.
Yeah,
but
you know what? My brother, who is a doctor, is constantly reminding me of that. And he'll say, you know, John, when we're cutting human tissue, we don't get a chance to get a continuance, take a recess, or get a do-over. You either get it right or you don't. He likes to kind of remind me of that all the time.
This is the plaintiff, Gerald, Lynn, Billingsley. He says he brought his car to the defendant to install a new fan belt, and the guy ripped him off. That's right, he said he changed the belt. He charged him for a new belt and never actually changed it. What a scammer. He's suing for $171.32, the amount he paid him for the fake work. This is a defendant, Brian Oral. He says he changed the plaintiff's belt, but the guy took the car to his competitor down the street to get his work inspected. And they lied to him and told him the belt was never changed. This other shop fed the plaintiff a bunch of you-know-what. But he stands behind his work and will prove he changed the belt today. He's accused of faking it.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
You promptly, after seeing that, you went and paid $171.
I did because I do. Most times when somebody's doing something wrong and you face them, you're going to be the guilty and they're going to be innocent. And
Why wouldn't you just say, hey, my eyeballs have been on you the whole time. You didn't change my belt if you really saw that he didn't change your belt?
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case in the docket. The plaintiff says he was royally ripped off by the defendant, who was supposed to give him a new fan belt. But the defendant says he stands behind his work and did a good job for the man, so leave it alone. It's the case of I'm not a fan.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Billingsley, you are suing the defendant's company for $171.32, what they charged you for a job that, according to you, they didn't do. Tell me what happened here.
Well, I went to them and asked them to do the job. They said they'd do it. Well, I had also, I used to be a maintenance man, so I went to YouTube and I seen exactly how the thing was changed. And so when I got back to them, I just got me a seat right. They don't let you get inside where you can be with them, but I got me in a seat where I could see what was going on. And when they changed it, one thing I knew they had to do was to undo the water hose, the upper and lower water hose, because they go in between the belt. So I was watching that, and sure enough, there's never no water released from that vehicle. And when they got the belt loose, I see it hanging there, and I said, well, they're going to change this quick. He had took the belt and threw up on the thing. The belt wasn't hanging there anymore.
Well, what did he do with your belt on your car?
And that's what they say. He never did take it off. He couldn't take it off because he had to take the lower and upper radiator hose off to get it off.
And then you promptly, after seeing that, you went and paid $171.
I did because I do. Most times when somebody's doing something wrong and you face them, you're going to be the guilty and they're going to be innocent. And
Why wouldn't you just say, hey, my eyeballs have been on you the whole time. You didn't change my belt if you really saw that he didn't change your belt?
I called him up after I left his place and I told him, I said, listen, I'm going to put a lawsuit in.
Why even pay them if it's true that you saw that they didn't do the job? Why would you then reach into your wallet and pull out $171?
Because I just wasn't going to confront them in their business. And I don't trust people that can do something like that. They'll bow up on you.
Now, what did you do? After you left there, you took the car where?
I took the Watkins Automotive.
All right. And what happens?
I went in there. I said, would you mind letting me pay you to go ahead and make sure I got a new belt on my car? And he said, yeah. I said, I sure would appreciate that.
The people you took it to, what did they tell you about the fan belt?
They told me that the fan belt had not been changed. It's the original belt that was on the car, and they even took the picture right here. They took a picture. If you can see right here, it says Mopar. That is the brand name of Chrysler Corporation original equipment.
Let me hear from you, Mr. Oral. What happened? You changed a guy's fan belt or didn't you? Are you the person who did the work or did someone else do the work?
My mechanic did the work. I was there as he did the work. The belt was changed.
What's a brand of belt that you guys put on?
I'm not exactly sure. It was one from O'Reilly's. It was not a Mopar belt.
It wouldn't be on any of your paperwork?
It should be on the paperwork. Give me just a second, if you don't mind. My mechanic is looking in our files real quick to give me that information. Another thing I wanted to mention, I'm pretty sure he said that he took it to Watkins Automotive.
Yeah.
And my mechanic used to work at Watkins, and him and the owner's son could not get along. So he left there.
Well, we're going to look right now at the documents from the new place. Where's the information about how the other shop never took the belt off, Mr. Billingsley?
It says serpentine belt.
I mean, the closest thing you have to that is the word original belt was removed from car.
That's it right there. That's the original belt.
But, I mean, Mopar is sold at Advanced Auto Parts. The belt in question, yes, it is. I just looked it up. I looked it up on the internet, and they sell it at Advanced Auto Parts.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either till I looked it up.
But I have the belt they took off right there.
Your Honor?
Yeah.
I have the paperwork, and it was actually a Mopar Micro V serpentine belt.
Show me the paperwork you're looking at. Oh, that could have been typewritten now while I've been waiting. Pull it back a little bit. Pull it back. Is this the original bill that you had with him?
Yes, ma'am.
But you should have the original bill. Let me see your original bill. This will be interesting.
Yes, ma'am. I got it here in my hand.
Oh, well, we're getting somewhere, huh?
You got a smoking gun here?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. That's interesting. You keep that right where you are, pal. Now, that's fascinating because you can put that down now. Put that down, Mr. Orell. Mr. Orell, I asked you to prove to me what part you had used because that might put the issue to rest. The words out of your mouth were we used gates. Then I said, but Mopar is available at Advanced Auto Parts. Then you said that your guy was going to find the receipt. Then you handed me a receipt that is typed up. It could have been typed up right now. In fact, it does have the date of right now. And someone wrote Mopar on that. But unlucky for you, Mr. Billingsley actually has the original one, which says that it was a Gates serpentine bell. So as crazy as Mr. Billingsley's case sounded, I'm a little concerned that someone doctored up evidence because that is exactly what you're being accused of. So I don't believe he saw you not do it, but I am mighty concerned that someone changed what the receipt said.
Welcome back to the People's Court. The plaintiff says he paid the defendant for a new fan belt, but the guy didn't put it in, and he is not about to get ripped off. But the defendant says the plaintiff took the car to his competitor. That guy lied to him, and he owes nothing. Let's see what the judge thinks.
You're being accused of charging for work you don't do. So I don't believe he saw you not do it, but I am mighty concerned that someone changed what the receipt said, and I am ruling in favor of the plaintiff in the amount of $171.32.
So the judge finds for the plaintiff in this case. Interestingly, she doesn't believe Mr. Earl did change the belt. Mr. Earl, what do you think?
The belt did get changed, for one. And two, besides that, you do not have to pull a serpentine belt off you do not have to pull any coolant hoses off to put a belt on.
All right. Well, Mr. Billingsley, let me ask you how you feel about the outcome. The judge agrees with you. She finds in your favor. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm proud of it. I just wish you could have seen those pictures better. We had somebody over there to show her just what it was. Could you see where the original clamps were on the hose? I just think the judge, she could catch her the way she did. He did because any other way, with evidence I had, she could walk free.
All right, sir, thank you. That'll be it. You're going to get your money back. So congratulations. Harvey, how about that?
Well, Doug, unfortunately, here's what you have to do when you go to an auto repair shop. You should ask for the replaced part, the part that is taken out that wasn't good, and you should see it. Look at it for yourself to know that that part was taken out and a new one was put in. Now, what you don't know is, was it really a new one that was put in, or was it just another old one? That's the danger when you go to an auto repair shop.
What is your favorite zoo animal?
Well, let me qualify that by saying I have mixed feelings about zoos, because part of me doesn't want to see any of these animals in captivity, and then part of me kind of recognizes zoos they have an important role to play, I think, in educating people and giving people this love for animals and nature. But I'm going to go with mountain lions. I think they're the American big cat, right, from our country. And they used to be all across North America, now not so much. And they're just amazing, because feline movement, cats, the way they move like a house cat, is so graceful and stealthy. And to see a big cat move like that is pretty amazing stuff.
And our daughter got a cat during COVID. And Christy will deliberately put big cats on the TV. She'll put, the Discovery Channel, whatever's playing, something by David Attenborough, and she will video her cat watching the show. And if the big cat is moving off the screen, her cat jumps to go find out where the big cat is on the screen. Tries to go behind the TV to see where the cat went. It's kind of funny. Yeah. I think for me it would be the monkeys. I feel like it's a big ballet, especially when they're active, and it feels fun, and it feels like, when my kids were little, just joy. It just feels joyous, Yeah,
they're fun to watch, no question. They don't just sit there. They're always doing something.
Right.
And sometimes you got to duck, because they might throw something at you.
Right, exactly.
This is the plaintiff, Guy Brown. He says his neighbor disconnected his air conditioning condensers, moved and damaged them. He can't get his condo to cool down now. He's tired of sweating and is suing them for the $10,000 he certainly owed. This is the defendant, Claire Cherry. She says the plaintiff had his air conditioning unit up against her wall, and she had her workers move it and reconnect it on his wall. This guy's barking up the wrong tree if he thinks she's going to pay him $10,000 for something that works perfectly fine in its new and rightful spot. She's accused of not chilling out a neighbor.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
So they disconnect your unit and do what with it?
And they sit it in the dirt. They sit my unit in the dirt.
And do they put something else on the slab where your unit had been?
They put her unit there in the place of my unit.
Okay.
They put my unit in the dirt. So nothing was hooked up to my unit. Nothing was hooked up to my unit.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says his nasty neighbor disconnected and then removed his air conditioning unit, and he wants $10,000. The defendant says, that the unit base is in the wrong spot on her wall, and she had to move it because the plaintiff wouldn't. It's the case of chill out.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Brown, you are suing Ms. Sherry, who owns the unit next to yours, for $10,000 to replace your AC unit. What happened?
So Claire owns the unit next to me. She hired some very sketchy people to complete some work for her. Essentially, they disconnected my unit, set my unit in the dirt.
What unit did they disconnect?
My air conditioning unit.
Okay, and where had your unit been on your property such that they walked over and were completely negligent, or was your unit on her property?
So the units are connected. It's Unit 15 and Unit 17. So the hookups are roughly 8 inches apart. They're at the same location.
Is it on your property or on her property?
It's a shared property. It's a condo association.
I know it's a condo association. But was it behind her house or behind your house?
It's behind both of our houses, is what I'm trying to explain to you.
So according to you, they went behind your house and did what? Tell me what they did.
They disconnected my unit, which was already there. Okay.
All right. So they disconnect your unit and do what with it?
And they sit it in the dirt. They set my unit in the dirt.
And do they put something else on the slab where your unit had been?
They put her unit there in the place of my unit.
Okay.
They put my unit in the dirt. So nothing was hooked up to my unit. Nothing was hooked up to mine.
Okay, so then what happens? What happens? What happens? Your tenant calls and says what? I have no AC?
Yes.
All right, and then what happens?
She told me that I told her to take pictures of everything. I told her to take pictures of everything that's going on, and I'm going to come by and check it out.
Okay, and did she take pictures, and did you give them to me?
That is correct. And I also went by and took pictures as well. So this is, see the two, if you go back to the previous
Who
pictures,
is standing, is this her workman standing on the slab?
That is correct. So my AC, okay, so yeah, see my
What am I looking at there?
So that's to the right of her property. That's her AC unit. There, see, there's two slabs. There's a plastic slab on top. That's where her AC unit set on. Previously, there's underneath that plastic gray slab, that's a country slab, is where my AC unit was sitting. And you can see where it's hooked up. Now that they went in, kind of threw it back together once I said something about it. This was a few days later.
And why are you suing for 10 grand over that? How are you out 10 grand? If they reconnected it, what's the problem?
Because they didn't reconnect it properly. So I hired my own air conditioner guy to come out and look at it. And he said that it was damaged.
Well, just a second. Did your air conditioner guy put something in writing about how they damaged it?
I mean, he told me.
I know, that's what we call rank hearsay. I mean, this is your case. You're trying to prove that her negligent employees who she employed ruined a compressor that's, I don't know how many years old, and you're trying to get from her $10,000 for brand new AC system over it. So you have to prove your case. So I saw an estimate for brand new ACs, you know, with all new equipment and apparently new everything, new, you know, inside the ceiling stuff, new everything, 10 grand, woo! Okay, that's awesome. However, you're going to have to prove that the negligent men, and I'll hear from you in a second, Ms. Sherry, on whether they were even negligent, but that the negligent workers she hired actually broke it. So all you've shown me is an estimate for brand new air conditioning. Where is the professional opinion that they broke it? If they disconnected something and didn't reconnect it, they clearly made a mistake because they didn't know that that belonged to a different unit. Will you agree with me on that, at least, that they made a mistake?
Welcome back to the People's Court. The plaintiff says that he had to spend a long, hot summer sweating because the defendant disconnected his air conditioning unit and he wants some justice. But the defendant says that she had to do that because the unit was on her wall. Let's go back into the courtroom.
You know, litigants come here every day and just trust me, Judge, somebody said so. That's not evidence. Ms. Sherry, let me hear from you. What's going on with these slabs? What was the confusion? I guess you weren't there to supervise. What is it that happened?
Okay, his air condition was really behind my unit because there's a electric room that separates his unit from my unit. He is directly behind my unit, and it was a system there, but we moved it earlier.
Your own system there. I'm just curious how the mistake happens and whether, I don't know whose property it's behind. Why doesn't somebody take a picture way back so I can tell? Okay. What'd your guys do wrong? You guys did something wrong.
I can show you.
All right, you can show me from the pictures. Let's look at your pictures that you submitted into evidence. Yeah, what am I looking at here?
Okay, that to the left where the security bars are, that is my unit. And to the right, that is my system. Yes, that's it. See, you see that door?
Yeah.
There to the right? behind his unit. That is a electrical room
for you,
and for the whole building. Okay. That door is a little room there.
Anyway, what happened?
Okay.
Your guys did what? What did your guys do?
Okay, they moved his unit. They did. They moved his unit so that my unit could sit directly behind my unit. Right here on this picture, I was showing you how it should be done. This is another unit right here. It's like Mr. Brown's and mine, but you see this air conditioned, his unit is on the other side of that door. And that's where his should be.
So what did can you just tell me what the people you hired did? They accidentally disconnected his unit?
Well, they didn't accidentally disconnect it, but they disconnected it. They moved it over, and when I got over there, they had moved the unit.
Okay, and they moved it where?
They moved it to the slab that's by the electrical room.
He says that they put it on the ground. How long later did they reconnect it, Mr. Brown?
A few days later.
Okay, he says that they put it on the ground and they didn't even connect it until he was, angry about it.
No, ma'am, that's not really what happened. What happened is that I asked them to reconnect his unit. He said that they could reconnect it because mine wasn't connected either. They reconnected it the very next day.
Okay, here's the thing, though. If they disconnected something and didn't reconnect it, they clearly made a mistake because they didn't know that that belonged to a different unit. Will you agree with me on that, at least, that they made a mistake?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm saying they
But now, Mr. Brown, for you to be entitled to $10,000 for a new unit is nuts because, first of all, even if they did ruin that compressor's not worth $10,000. That's what all new everything is worth, and that wouldn't be what they ruined. But second of all, before we even get to value, you have to prove to me they ruined it by disconnecting it, because disconnecting it and then connecting it the next day is an inconvenience, but it shouldn't ruin the compressor. Do you have any proof whatsoever that they ruined it by moving it? Any proof?
Well, in the paperwork that you received, the air conditioning man did clearly say that it's not working. So, I mean,
show me the document you want me to look at.
Okay, I think it's called the estimate or something.
Yes, I know. And what you have an estimate for is installation of a new HVAC system, which is kind of greedy. And it says removed old air handler unit and air conditioning system. Nothing here says that your old stuff is anything but antiquated. It doesn't say that it got ruined by being moved. Look, court is about making you whole. You have to prove that the other side hurt you and how much they hurt you. And that's what you get. You don't get like a coincidence such as, oh my gosh, they were on the property and then they moved your unit thinking it was hers, and woo, I get a $10,000 new whole AC system all over my head. That's not how it works. Why would I make this lady pay you $10,000? You haven't even been able to prove that anything her people did anything but inconvenience you. I'm ruling in favor of the defendant.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So the defendant prevails in this case. Mr. Brown, who was suing for $10,000, doesn't even get a penny. Mr. Brown, what are you thinking?
I think it was unfair. I don't see how the judge could come to that verdict based on the evidence.
Well, I'm sorry, but you just couldn't prevail, and that's the way the judges decided. Ms. Cherry, let me ask you how you feel about the outcome of the case. I would imagine you're a little relieved, aren't you?
Well, I wasn't uptight about it because I knew he couldn't win this because it was nothing done to his unit except reconnected, and it was working when I left, and she wasn't using it anyway. She had a fan in the window. So I feel real good. The judge made the correct decision.
Judge made the right decision. I'm sure you feel that way. All right, good enough. Congratulations. How about that, Harvey?
Okay, Doug, even if the plaintiff had won this case, the plaintiff's suing for $10,000. Here's the deal. When somebody damages your property, you are not entitled to replacement value. You are entitled to the depreciated value of the unit at the time of the loss, and that ain't going to be anywhere near $10,000.
Name a trend or culture that has died out that you wish would come back.
80s hair.
80s hair.
80s hair.
The big hair.
The big hair.
All right, and we have a modest example right here.
Look how young we were, jeez. But I miss the big hair. Every time I sit down with a hairdresser, I say, well, I really want this feather. And they'll go, uh-huh. And then they'll do whatever they want that's more modern than doing the actual feathering that I really want. And I just want it back. I want back my perm. I want 80s hair back. I really do.
What about the shoulder pads and all that?
Shoulder pads were not, they do make your hips look slimmer, so that might be nice. But honestly, I'd be satisfied with the 80s hair.
All right, here's what I would bring back, okay? Playgrounds from when I was a kid, the dangerous kind, okay?
The kind that killed you.
I want the ones with the metal monkey bars that go way up in the air where, you know, every step you take, if you screw up, you're probably going to get hurt real bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Why would you want that back?
The high aluminum slide that on a summer day, if you touch it, it'll fry an egg on it. But, you know, at the right time, they were great, right? They were super fun. I want the rusty merry-go-round that you jump on and jump off of that's kind of a little bit treacherous. I want the seesaw.
The seesaw.
Where are the
That's
seesaws?
where my back problems come from. Like, that's ridiculous. You know how many times my brother would jump off and let me go? I mean, these are terrible things.
I love them. It gives there's an element of risk. You've got speed. You've got heights. And nowadays, we've taken all the fun out of the playgrounds. You go there, everything's all rubber and plastic.
I think you're remembering this with a lot of romance because when you had children who were on the playground, you really enjoyed.
I wanted to wrap them in bubble wrap.
You wanted to wrap them in bubble wrap, and you really enjoyed the melted rubber stuff that they would fall on instead of concrete.
Listen, I still say we're doing our kids a disservice. We've taken the fun out of the playgrounds, and there's lessons that you learn there from falling down and breaking your arm
or getting a third-degree burn.
Right. You learn lessons about risk-taking and about you conquer your fears. Yeah, getting up on top of the slide, all that stuff. So bring it back. Please. The dangerous playgrounds.